Hello, this is Module 1, Lesson 2 from our Engaged New York curriculum. So our standard that we're going to be addressing is understanding place value. So go ahead and copy the standard down in your notebooks. We're going to be working on using your place value chart to show understanding of the millions place value all the way to the thousandths. So let's get started with an application problem from yesterday's learning. A school district ordered 247 boxes of pencils. Each box contains 100 pencils. If the pencils are to be shared evenly among 10 classrooms, how many pencils will each classroom receive? Draw a place value chart to show your thinking. So let's walk through this a little bit together. Here is my place value chart. I've already loaded my 2, 4, 7 in the correct spot. So my 2 is worth 200, my 4 is 4 tens, and my 7 is 7 ones. So I want you to copy this in your place value chart, and let's look at the steps that we need to do to solve this problem. So back in my problem, it says each box contains 100 pencils. So that's my first step. I need to move 100 times on the place value chart with my 247. So I'm going to draw my arrows, and I see that there are 2 zeros. So that's worth 2 hops. So 1, 2. My 4 is going to move, oops, 1, 2. And then my 7 is going to move 1, 2. So now I have a 200. My 4 is going to move here. And then my 7 is going to be moving down here. So what do I do with those empty spaces here and here? I am going to fill them in with zeros. So now my answer says 24,700. But I'm not quite done yet because I have another part. Okay, so I have 10 classrooms that they're sharing it between. So if I'm sharing an entire number between 10 classrooms, is my number going to get bigger or is my number going to get smaller? You should say getting smaller because I'm dividing the pencils among 10 classrooms. So if I'm dividing, I know I'm going to be moving down on my place value chart. My 10 has 1 0 in it, and we know that each of these blocks is worth getting larger by 10 or dividing by 10. So I'm going to be moving my numbers back 1 hop. So my final answer is, if my 2 moves here, 4 here, 7 here, and then a 0, 2,470 pencils. So let's use this to get started with practice. I'm going to show you how to do the first 2, and then your job is to stop and pause and do the second 2. So my first problem is 367 times 10. So I want you to be looking at my numbers here and think to yourself, times 10, and my number going to be getting larger, or is my number going to be getting smaller? If I'm multiplying, my number is going to be getting larger. So 367 times 10 is going to be, make sure you draw your arrows in your place value chart, 1 hop larger. So my final answer is 3,670 if I'm multiplying by 10. Now, if I'm dividing by 10, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to be getting smaller and moving the other direction. Okay, so 367 divided by 10, I'm going to be looking at going the opposite direction. And since there's 1 0 in each of these boxes, each hop is worth 10, I'm going to be moving just 1 hop because I have 1 0. I'm dividing, so I'm getting smaller. And remember that decimal place value is just that decimal place value. That doesn't count as 1. So now when I have my numbers in there, my 3 is going to move here, my 6 will move here, and then my 7 will be moving over into the tenths place. So now my new number is 36 and 7 tenths. Okay, now I want you to try with 4,367 first times 10, and then do 4,367 divided by 10. And I want you to draw out on your place value chart the arrows and the new movements of the numbers. Please go ahead and pause the video while you work this out. Once you unpause it, I will give you the answers. Okay, here are your answers for 4,367 times 10, your answer. You will be moving just one hop this direction, so your final answer is 43,670. Go ahead and pause the video again if you haven't yet worked out the second one. Okay, and here is your answer for 4,367 divided by 10. It ends up being 436 and 7/10. So let's keep doing a few more practice problems. Now we're looking at multiplying and dividing by 100 instead of by 10. And so if you know that one hop is 10, then two hops would be 100 because 10 times 10 equals 100. You can also look at the number of zeros. There are 2 zeros in 100, so that means you're going to go 2 hops over on the place value chart. So go ahead and plug in 215 and 6/10 in your place value chart, and we'll do our multiplying and dividing by 1,000. The first problem I'm going to do is 215 and 6/10 times 100. I'm looking at those 2 zeros, so I need to go and move 1, 2, so that's where my number will end up. 1, 2. My number is starting here, so I'm going to go 1, 2, and then that's 6, so the same thing, 1, 2. So my answer would be 21,560 with a 0 in here. You just plug in your numbers 2, 1, 5, 6, and then fill in a 0 and then read it. And then my dividing is dividing by 100, so I know I'm going to be dividing 2 steps on the place value chart. 1, 2. 1, 2. And then 1, 2. So when you go ahead and plug that in, we have a pretty big decimal number. So I have 2 and 156 thousandths. You read the number like you normally would, 156, but then just go up to read the place value name, thousandths. All right, you go ahead and try 3 and 7/10 times 100 and 3 and 7/10 divided by 100. Use the same number of movements on the place value chart, and I will give you the answer, so go ahead and pause now. All right, you can check yourself. 3 and 7/10 times 100 goes up to 370. I just plug in a 0 there in that empty space. And then the same thing when I'm dividing by 100. 3 and 7/10, move it over 2, and then there's nothing left in this 10th spot, but I have to fill it in with something. So now I get 37 thousandths as my answer. Okay, last two problems, and this one is multiplying and dividing by 1,000. So you know that 10 is worth 1 step, 100 is 2, and then 1,000 would be 3 movements up on the place value chart. So I will do one together, and then I want you to do the second one, the dividing one. Here's what your number should look like. 482 thousandths is placed in the place value chart, and then 482 for our second problem is set up correctly. I'm going to draw my arrows first, and I know I have 1,000, which is 3 hops, and I can also see I have 1, 2, 3 zeros, so that means I'm moving 1, 2, 3 places over. 1, 2, 3 places over. 1, 2, 3 places over. So my answer would end up being 482. Now you go ahead and pause and work out what 482 divided by 1,000 would be. Okay, if you notice, it ended up being what we started with, 482 thousandths when I divide, because I am just simply moving my decimal 3 places over. So here we go, 482 thousandths. Okay, on the blend space activity, I want you to go ahead and take the quiz. There are 4 questions, and it covers everything that we just did here. If you pass that, then you are ready for your problem set in class. If you have any questions, you can come and talk to me.